evident. So we have said with imaginary numbers that the square root of -1 equals to I. This is where it all comes from. Now that means if I square both sides of this, if I have -1 equals to I and I square both sides, I get square root of -1 is -1, then I get I squared. Meaning now I squared is actually equals to -1. Meaning my imaginary number when squared can actually give me a real number 1. We are going to be working with this a lot now. Let's note it again that I will write it in bold so we remember it. I'll write it in bold so we can remember it. That, excuse me, apologies. Let me lock my screen. I squared equals to -1. This is going to be extremely helpful as we go forward. Firstly, how is it going to be helpful? We are going to use this concept to simplify imaginary numbers. For example, if I have I cubed, what I will do, I will change it to an I squared and an I using the laws of exponents. When we multiply powers of the same base, we add the exponents. So I cubed is the same as I squared and I. The aim is I always want to have this. I want to get I squared. My goal is to get I squared so I can end up with -1. So if I have I cubed, it will be I squared times I. Then I squared is -1. Then you have I, meaning I squared is the same as -I. Let's go to I exponent 4. Remember, I always want I squared. I want to change, to simplify my imaginary number, I need to change the power, have I squareds, change the powers to I squared. So I'm going to have, if it's I to the power of 4, I am going to change it to I squared. Instead of saying I squared times I squared, I can simply say I squared all, I squared all squared. Then I squared is a -1. Then a -1 is squared, giving me 1. So you see my imaginary number is completely a real number now. We are going to do a few more until we get the gist of it. Remember, the aim is to get I squared so I can get -1 and maybe hopefully end up with a real number. I exponent 5. I want I squared. So I'm going to have I exponent 4. This will give me I squared, then the I alone. It's going to be I exponent 4 will be I squared times all squared, this is 4, times I, which is -1 squared times I, end up having I. Right, 2 more. If I have, let's do let's see. Yeah, let's do 2 more in the same sequence. I exponent 6. I want I squared. So I exponent 6 is actually 3 I squareds. I'm going to have I squared to the power of 3. that will be I squared is negative 1, then power 3, that will give me negative 1. I exponent 7 cannot give me I squared straight. What I need to do, I need to change exponent 7 to an even and an odd. So I'm going to have the even will be I exponent 6 times 1i. Then I'm going to have negative 1. Excuse me. I am going to have I exponent 6 is I squared exponent 3. Then the extra I to give me 7 i's. Alright, then I'm going to have I squared is negative 1 cubed times I. And that gives me negative 1 cubed is negative 1 times I, giving me negative I. All right, so what we see is that if my exponent, look at this, if my exponent of my imaginary number is odd, the odd ones, I end up either with an I or a negative I. I end up either with an I or a negative I. But if my exponents are even, let's say this one as well, I end up with a real number, either positive or negative 1. So odd exponent, what I'm seeing is odd exponents result in an I or a negative I. Then even exponents result in a 1 or negative 1. Okay, we'll stop there and go to the next video.